Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Femme Force podcast. My name is Rachel Paskvan. I'm your host, and today I am joined with my friend Justine. Justine is in tech sales, and I've known her for longer than I care to admit. We have been friends for a long time, have gotten to travel together and spend time together. And she is one of those women that has this badass career who is always on the go, always striving for more. And I wanted to bring her in to talk to us about choosing your why in your career, which is something Justine really believes in. So, Justine, can you give our listeners just a little bit of a background about you and where you're at professionally and personally?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Justine Cabin. I am a regional sales manager at a cybersecurity company called Zscaler. We are a $2.5 billion public company. I run sales for large enterprise accounts in the Ohio Valley, which encompasses mostly Ohio, a little bit of Kentucky, and a little bit of Illinois as well. Really focused on Fortune 500 accounts, deepening relationships with existing customers, finding new ones, and building towards a really sustainable revenue goal for myself, my territory, my organization. A little bit of background on me. I started my career in technology, graduated school, Ohio University, go Babcats in 2009. Uh, Funny, I really didn't have a ton of direction when I went to college. Spent the better part of 3 years figuring out what exactly I wanted to do and decided that a business degree, marketing and pre-law was going to be it for me. So I got a degree in those areas. I always thought maybe I'd go to law school. Ended up getting a job with a family friends company selling copiers for a year, schlepping door to door in East Cleveland, and decided that I really love sales, but didn't want to be a door to door salesperson. So got my first real technology job at a company called Fleetmatics, where I met my husband, and that's been a long history as well. We have two kids, and really from Fleetmatics, saw a lot of growth within technology. This was back in 2011. Spent a ton of time in telematics, sales and marketing software, and then most recently reevaluated my why and decided I wanted to get into cybersecurity. So been with Zscaler for just about a year now.
Which is
That's
amazing. And I mean, this journey has been up and down for you. I feel like, especially within the tech market, it's always new things coming out, always different stuff coming in. So, can you explain a little bit about your journey with finding your why? You've talked with me personally about, in the beginning, we're young, we're hungry for the money, and we're like, we're going to go buy the purse, we're going to buy the shoes, we're going to go on the fancy vacation, we're going to do all the things. But now that you're married, you've got kids, and you're much more advanced in your career, your why has really ebbed and flowed through. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. So when I was young in my career and the things that I cared about when I was 21, 25, even 30, so drastically different than what I think about and what I work towards today, intentionally, right? So as I graduated from school, didn't really have a clear direction, just kind of figured I kind of got pushed into sales as like a, hey, I think you'd be good at this. You're a personable person. And I really kind of just spent the first few years of my career being sort of led around by, carrot and the stick, right? Here's
Yeah.
here's some money, go out, here's the job for you, go do it. And growing up really with a blessed childhood for sure. Growing up in a really nice way. My parents paid for private schools. I went to, a good college, didn't have to pay anything for it. I didn't really appreciate all of the work that goes into actually being able to provide those things, right?
Yeah.
And my barometer for success at that point was really just, hey, you're getting a paycheck. Here's a goal. Can you go out and achieve it? You'll get more money. And it'll enable you to do all the things that you want to do. You can buy a nice car. You can buy nice shoes. You can buy a nice house. You can, have all the physical material things that when you're young and you're used to those things that you think matter and like how you measure your life and your success by, right? Um, and so when I had my son, that changed a little bit for me, right? So where I had
Yeah.
all this disposable income before, and I was like living my best life and partying and traveling and doing all the great things that you do when you're in your young 20s and don't require a lot of sleep. Um, you're able to just kind of live by, by the seat of your pants and,
Really are.
get up and go to work every day and still laugh I could, that I could go out till 3 in the morning and get up and be at my job by 8 and do a great job.
Yep.
That we can't do
To be
we
young.
can't do that anymore.
No, not at all.
But when I had my son, I was selling for Still Fleetmatics, where I worked with my husband that I had met there. And I decided after a couple of months of coming back from my very short 6-week maternity leave, which was unpaid, I
Oh,
decided this is crazy. I'm running across the county every morning and every night to be able to just get to my job so that I can, pay for my son's daycare. And I felt like I was just on a complete rat race, right? Like
yeah.
I felt like I had no time. I was not enjoying the work that I was doing at that point. I felt like all I was doing was paying for daycare and killing myself in the process and not spending any time with my son. So at that time, I decided, okay, what's important to me right now at this point in my life is not actually getting that paycheck, but actually being able to spend time with my son while he's a little brand new baby who I saw growing up right before my eyes, and I didn't want to miss
Yeah.
anything. So I was lucky enough to be able to take that time and stay home with him and really just kind of focus on that at that point in my life, right? Like I didn't really
Yeah.
care about my career. I just wanted to be a good mom, right? But then
It's the most important job though.
it is, it's a very
Yep.
important job. And if you're not happy as, in your job and what you're doing, whether that's as a parent or whether that's for an employer, you're not going to be good to anybody. So I
Yeah.
really was unhappy at that point, decided I needed to take some time. So I spent about a year and a half just not working and staying at home with him and watching him and enjoying that time. And so blessed to have been able to do that. But then, of course, as these things go, you start feeling guilty, right? You start feeling like, well, I feel bad if I go and buy something for myself and I don't, actually contribute anything to the income of our household. And we were going to have another baby. And so I thought, okay, well, if I get out of the workforce for too long, how am I going to be able to get back in?
Yeah.
So, you kind of have this pendulum swing of I want to do this and this is what I'm focused on. And then now I want to go back to work because I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to at some point. So, I got a job, another technology company, which several of my friends worked at. So went back to work there. They ended up getting acquired by Oracle, who's a huge behemoth company. And I,
Yeah.
I didn't really like that. But during that time, I had my daughter as well. So I had two kids within just under 3 years of each other. And, we had bought our first house and then we were outgrowing our house. And I was like, well, now I need to find a better job and I need to
Yeah.
go get more money and I need to figure out what's my next move, right? So it was always like very money driven until my kids. And even
Yeah.
probably a little bit after that. Um, I was always trying to get to the next level of my career. And if you look at my resume, I've spent probably about 2 to 3 years at every company that I've ever worked at. And I always thought, in technology, that's fine, right? People leave jobs to go get their next thing
Yeah.
and increase their pay. If I could increase my on target earnings by 30 or $50,000, like why not? Why wouldn't I do it? Um, but then, as you get older, you become looked at as, well, why are you leaving? Why aren't you happy? Do you know what you want? Where is your head at? Are we going to be able to
Yeah.
rely on you? A long-term employee, right? So you start having these thoughts and having certain conversations with different jobs that you're trying to get. And I really had to sit down a couple of years ago. I was working for a really crazy startup at the time, and I decided I need to really assess what's important to me and what I actually want to do with my future, with my next 5 years, my next 10 years of my life, financially, personally, professionally. How do I actually slow down a little bit to speed up? Because anybody who's a working mom or even just anybody with a crazy job like you, Rachel, like it's very easy to just let the day lead you, right? I got to go do this
Yeah.
today. This is what the fire is. This is what I have to do. It's really easy to get into that mode. And so I left this crazy startup and I decided, okay, enough of this. I need to be extremely intentional with what I'm doing from here on out for the rest of my career so that I can architect it in a way that's going to be the most beneficial for me and for my family and to help me achieve the goals that I want to.
Yeah. And so when you're doing all this and you're going back and you're thinking about delving into the importance of like aligning your career with your why, what is the benefit for you for doing the meaningful work? Was it to be a better mom? Did it help you personally? Did you feel like lighter and like you had stuff more together because you were working towards something more than just the money?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think first and foremost, the most important thing to me is my children and my family. So, when I took the role that I have now, after doing a lot of this inner work, it was to be able to spend more time at home. So I spent the last several years of my career flying around, working on big accounts and big deals all over the country. And I missed a lot of different things when I was home or when I was gone, sorry.
Yeah.
So for me, it was definitely number one, most about what kind of mom, what kind of wife, what kind of family is important to me. And that's not to say that I'm never going to miss something or I'm never going to, you know, not have a moment where I'm regretting that I'm not at one of my kids' parent teacher meetings or something like that. But it was really about intentionally laying out a plan for the way that I wanted my family to operate and the way that I wanted to operate as a mom and a parent and a wife within the life that I've created. So there's a book called Essentialism by Greg McKeown, and it's basically about saying no to the things that don't serve your greater purpose, right? So again, going back to if you don't take charge of your life, other people are going to take charge of it. If you don't manage
Yeah.
your calendar, your day to day, and all the things that you want to get done and your goals, somebody else is going to fill it up with what they need. If
Mhm.
you're working in a high pace, fast, intense environment. So it's really about understanding what the values are that you have, who you want to be, where you're trying to get to, and saying no, learning to say no, which is really difficult for somebody like me who's always a yes person,
Yeah.
always has been, always wants to take the trip, do the thing, go to the concert, stay out late, go see my friends, go on a date with
Hmm.
my husband. Like I'm a yes person. Um, but when you actually start writing down what your goals are, what you want to do, where do you want to be? When do you want to pay off your house? What age do you want to retire? How much do you need to save for your kids' education? You start looking at all these things and you start realizing that your time is shrinking, right? When you're
Yep.
young, you have all the time in the
Mhm.
world. You don't need
No sleep.
no
You need
text, you
nothing.
don't need
Sleep,
sleep, you
water,
don't
food.
need anything. You don't need anything at all. And it's just the world is your oyster. You start getting into your mid and your late 30s, and you're like, wow, okay, my timeline's shrinking. My son's
Yep.
11. He's about to be 12. He's going into middle school. I have 5 years till I have to send him to college. Working backwards
Yep.
from the financial plan, what does that look like? I have a house that I want to pay off within a certain amount of time. What do I need to do to be able to get there to achieve that goal? What do I have to do if I want to buy a vacation home that I want to pay off before I retire? All these
Yeah.
things, when you're young, and at least when I was in school, I had no concept of,
Yeah. They don't teach this.
no, nobody teaches how to be intentional with your time and your activity and where you spend the time and with who, and how to manage a household, a life, a budget. Nobody teaches you that unless you go out and seek that. And I never did until it was kind of forced upon me. So it's definitely about professionally, where do I want to get at some point in my career? What's the path to get there? What's my 5 year plan? Never really had a 5 year plan.
Yeah. I mean, no one
Slowing
does in
down.
their early 20s. No one
Right.
has a 5-year plan. We basically have a 5-hour plan, and it was kind of done from there. Do you feel like companies or even in a bigger delve there, society in general could do more to try to help us. I feel like the younger generations, like the Gen Zers, are very into work-life balance or just being like, this isn't suiting me, bye. But we have been conditioned, like as millennials and as women, that like you have to be able to do it all. Like everybody else is doing it all. And companies don't always give the best benefits. You had a 6 week unpaid maternity leave. Like times have changed, but like those things still exist for women out there. And it's harder for them, I feel like, to be able to set intentional things because you feel like you have the weight of the world and all the responsibilities.
It's very hard for women, and being in a very male-dominated industry, it's I think probably not more challenging than
Mhm.
others where it's maybe more women advocating for others in, their industry, whatever that's healthcare or something else. But it's very easy to be burdened with those thoughts by society. Like, I'm not doing enough. I mean, this is why I went back to work, right? Originally, because I didn't think I was doing enough. And then you have to be the mom and you have to have the household clean and you have to make dinner and you have to get the kids where they need to go. And you're just constantly like checking everybody's boxes. And it's easy to burn out, right? It's easy to burn out if you're just always saying yes to everything and always trying to fulfill somebody else's agenda, societally and within a company that you work for. So
Yeah.
I think it's really important to surround yourself with people who empower you and enable you to live the life and give you the freedom to architect the future and the vision that you have for yourself while still being able to do your job and do it effectively and how you want to do it, and having the freedom to do so.
How did you navigate the change for transitioning from going from full on career mode into full on mom mode and then going back? Like, I imagine that has to be really hard, especially when you had two kids at the time then.
Yeah, so I think I was just so unhappy at the time when I made the decision, and like I just didn't even care that I'd be losing that income, right? I was like, I'll figure it
Mhm.
out. My husband was super supportive. He wanted me to be able to spend time with the kids if that was what I wanted to do. And I was just in such a unhappy and negative place with where I was at that time that I felt like a complete weight had been lifted off of me when I was like able to just stay home and able to lay in bed with my baby in the morning and not run, get up at 5 in the morning, pump and get everything ready to go, drop off at
Yeah.
daycare and go to work and then do that all, pump all day at work and then come back, right? And pick them up and do it all over again. I felt like I was just on this constant like mouse wheel of nonstop go, 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 and I was just so relieved, right? But then, like anything, you become comfortable in the environment that you're in, right?
Yeah.
And so I had wonderful times and spending days at the park and going to lunch with my sister and my mom and my friends and doing all the things that you can do when you have that time and that freedom. But then, after a while, I've always been somebody who wanted to work. I always knew that I wanted to have a career and I always knew that I would go back to work at some point. My mom was a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids for my whole life and was very lucky to be able to do so. But she and my dad got divorced when I was a freshman in college, and she had no college education. She had really nothing to fall back on.
Mhm.
And she said, you have to make sure that you take care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to rely on anybody because you don't know what the future holds. And so I always took that and really internalized it and knew that I was somebody who wanted to work. I was really inspired by professional women who were achieving the highest ranks within organizations and, disrupting the workplace and shattering the glass ceiling. I've always thought that was awesome and that I would in some way do that myself someday. So it wasn't so hard for me to transition from one to the other. It was more switching the mindset from, okay, I'm done with this now, but now I'm really happy and calm and great being with my kids. But then it's like, there's this guilt, right? Of, okay, well, I guess now it's time. I guess I've done this for long enough. And I guess I
Yeah.
need to go back into the working world and start contributing again and building my own career and being a little bit selfish, which, by the way, is okay, right? It's okay to be
Yeah,
selfish
1,000%.
in the goals that you have.
And when you're thinking about, I mean, this 5 years plans, we'll say like ahead, in 5 years, your son's going to be out of the house, and 10
No,
years that your daughter's going to be out of the house and in college. What do you feel like your why will be then? Do you feel like it'll ebb and flow once they're out and then once they're adults and will continue to grow or continue to change?
I do. I think at that point, it'll just be how do I continue to provide for them and give them all the opportunities that I want them to have that even I didn't have. I've had many great opportunities. I've been very lucky in my life and very grateful for, what my parents were able to provide for me in terms of my education, my career, and the head start that I know that I have in life, being who I
Yeah.
am, a woman in the society that I live in. Certainly want to be able to instill in them the values that I hold, though, right? Which is gratitude and not taking things for granted and integrity and, honesty and philanthropy and all the things that, I don't want them to take for granted and to carry it forward in their lives to become good, productive members of society, but also to leave them with a even better head start than I had, right? I want to enable them to understand how to get their mind around being successful themselves in whatever capacity that means,
Yeah.
right? Husband and I are both in sales. We always joke we're both of our kids are going to end up getting real jobs someday, and have some type of different career than what we both have had. And I want to set them up in a way that will make them not have to worry about anything financially for their future, to give them wonderful life experiences, to travel abroad, to study abroad, to have their own real estate at a young age that they can manage and learn the value of what money is and what it actually can provide for you.
Yeah. And I think
And
that's
for their
phenomenal that
children
you're,
someday, of
yeah,
course. Like I'm sure
you're
my why
setting the
will be
path.
very much focused on their kids and my grandkids someday.
So when you're looking at doing all of this, how do you find clarity in what your career path is going to be? Do you feel like you're just going to stay on this trajectory and keep going up, or are you going to like jump the jungle gym and go somewhere else, try something new? Like once the kids are out, or are you feeling this is the trajectory for you? And how do you give yourself clarity that this is what you want to do?
Yeah, so I think it's I mean I can't read the future, right? I think where I am in staying in security sales is definitely where I'll stay for at least the next 5 years. But very intentionally choosing the place that you want to be, right? Understanding that you have particular opportunities that are laid out in front of you. Um, Analyzing those and understanding here's what I do want, here's what I don't want, and having people surrounding you that really allow for you to um, grow and mature and fall and fail and start over and get better. Having people that really lift you up
Yeah.
around yourself, while also sharing and expressing what those goals are. Because one of the huge reasons why I came to work for the company that I work at today and why I plan to stay here is I've never had a female boss, with the exception
Wow.
of the one startup that I left after 4 months due to a very unfortunate situation. I have a female boss who's amazing. She has been with the company for a very long time. She's been highly successful. She shares her goals with me. I share mine with her. And she's extremely supportive. And we visualize our goals on a quarterly basis and even on a weekly basis. How are we tracking towards them? What do you want to do next? Have you thought about this? um, it's important to write your goals down. It's also important to talk about them and the why behind them, right? Because you're so much more likely and the odds are much in your favor if you actually write your goals down, but exponentially more if you socialize them, if you talk
Yeah.
about them with other people in your orbit who have the ability to open doors and remove obstacles for you. And it's a practice within our company that we do all the time. And it's kind of weird, right? When you first start doing it and sharing your goals with your team and people who don't really know you personally, right? Like, here's all the things I want to do. I want to pay off, last year it was I want to pay off my truck, and I want to, redo one of my bathrooms in cash. And a couple years ago it was I want to pay for my kitchen renovation in cash or whatever it is. But when you're telling people the things that you're really working towards and striving for, they can check in with you on it, right?
Yeah.
Hold you accountable. How are you doing on that? How is that goal coming along? You want to save 20 grand for your kids' education this year. Where are you at today? Like, it's odd to do it as a practice, but when you have other people who understand what you're working towards and can hold you accountable, it also is a constant reminder for you to keep going in that direction. Um, so will I stay in tech sales? Yes. Will I stay here? I hope so, as long as they'll have me. But I really just think it's important to pull yourself back and like really look at the whole board for yourself, because what's important to me as a working mom who has two kids, who has a house, and who has all these bills and all these things and all these other things that I want to do, my why might be completely different than people who don't have children, or people who don't care about owning a house and who live in a city and want to, be apartment dwellers forever and just travel with every
Yeah.
free cent that they have. Like, yeah, exactly. Everybody's why is different, but it's what's the action that's going to drive you towards meaningful progress within the goals that you have, because it's brick by brick, right? It's every day. What actions are you taking to help you get towards where you want to go? And over time, that brick wall gets really big and you can see the whole picture. On a daily narrow micro focus, it's kind of hard to see the big picture sometimes.
No, and I think that's so important for everybody to have. And I appreciate you talking about your why and how you've gotten to that point, and then giving the listeners a little bit of an idea with recommendations from books to writing things down to speaking about it of what they need to do to reach their why and really have that kind of clarity. So I'm going to ask you one final question that I ask all my guests on the Femme Force podcast. If
Okay.
you could give one piece of advice to your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
To my 16-year-old self,
Yes.
stop caring what everybody else thinks. Focus on who you are, what you want to do, and how you're going to get there. And stop letting other people's opinions influence your decisions.
I love that. I think that's something that even the 37-year-old in us can all get on board with. Well, thank you so much for being here, Justine. I really appreciate it. And I hope our listeners grabbed as much out of this conversation as I did.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Rachel. I hope this was exciting for you.
It was. Thank you, everyone.